And are we all here? Eric and Bill, okay. Should we get it? Can you hear me? Uh-oh.
I can hear you, Mayor.
Okay. All right, given that we're all here, why don't we get started? This meeting is called to order. Gold Hill City Council, April 5th, 2021. Can we have the roll call, please? Jessica?
We can't hear you, Jessica. Uh-oh.
I can hear you, but you sound like a chipmunk.
Yeah, chipmunk voice.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
That's better. That's
Much
better.
Better.
Okay. Yeah, my video just crashed all of a sudden. It wasn't me this time. I'm muting myself.
Probably
Right.
distorted audio too.
Mayor Stu,
Here.
Councilor Bishot,
Here.
Councilor Hing,
Here.
Councilor Igney.
Here.
Jessica, you're sort of cutting in and out. It's not consistent. Yeah.
Councilor Wilson,
She's muted.
I was trying to unmute it. Here.
Councilor Gina. All
Here.
right, we have a quorum.
Well, spring feels like it's. We will all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
To-
to the flag of the States of America,
To the republic
to
to the republic
for which
for
it stands,
stands one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and
with
justice
liberty
for
and
all.
justice for all.
Salute. Okay, so we have a full agenda today. Any agenda adjustments? Jeff?
There are no adjustments to the agenda.
Okay, how about announcements, awards, proclamations?
None of those either. Other than
Okay.
continue to pick up your blue bags at City Hall and drop off your cans of beer. We're having a great response to the drive for Christmas lights.
Good. Public input, I did get a letter that was to read. I'll paraphrase it because it's 2 pages, but didn't, it's into tonight's agenda items, thought I would add. From Ed Miller, who our playwright here in town, and he's put on a funny event for kids. The high point is note, because of COVID-19, the city of Gold Hill is able to hold public hearings and indoors. Just for pop-up gazebos, folding chairs, and 2 6-foot tables would enable us to hold such gatherings safely and comfortable in our city hall parks. An outdoor meeting on March 7th, dramatized for these items. Citizens had to stand outdoors in the sun for over an hour. Experience that was particularly difficult for some elderly residents, some early due to discomfort. So his wish list, and these would be used by the city for all city events. He was that he gets use of it for an occasional he's putting on, like the treasure hunt, but it comes to about $500. Prices them online and Mart. For example, he's getting chairs for $6 each. So that would be on the list of our things to purchase with some of these that we have coming in. Any other input?
Yes, I also have a letter to end. This is from Danielle Johnson at 5 Kellogg Street.
Mhm.
Right. I would prefer, oh, sorry. You have to mention us in a public meeting. My questions are as follows, and I would have asked them at the Whitewater Park meeting. Time was cut short by other people who wanted to speak and by the mayor. Questions and comments are as follows. Why are all of the changes to the river needing to be made for Whitewater Park? People have utilized Rogue River for recreation beginning of time. People can use Sports Park as is, no modification necessary. Conversation with ODFW brought this topic up that it is not necessary to change the riverbed for it to be used as a recreation lake. I have told that the modifications are for safety. If the river is that dangerous of Mugger's Rock, then we can contact the state who may fund signs or to prevent people from entering dangerous spots. Why spend millions of money for floaters? People can put in anywhere along the river for all of this modification does sense. 2, the head of the Whitewater Park to reference what has been done to the Ocoee River, I'm saying that right, and compares his theirs. If you research, that river was thrashed from miners, not in pristine condition. I ask that you do your research on that river. In the case of the Ocoee, it did improve that river because of all of destruction that had happened to it. Ours is already clean and a beautiful place, a piece of nature. 3, citizens are requesting a vote, some slur that goes out to inform the people that don't use Facebook or read the backwater bill. There has not enough detailed information as to what the project is really going to do, just putting large concrete blocks in the river and blowing out Mugger's Rock just so people use it to float the river. 4, I feel the city need to have some things analyzed and to them, such as how their taxes make up if the Olympics bid is approved and what kind of traffic will affect our city. It is only fair for us that live here and pay taxes to be informed before making any decisions. 5, final question. It appears that $180,000 was received and launched the idea of this project. Some of us would like to know why that was not used to apply for permits, everything in order before making such a give up our private, quiet, clean area of the river and bike. Where did all of the grant go? We request the water park to provide a list of expenditures that use the grant money. All of these questions are only provided because some of us would really like our to stay a small, untrampled, quiet area, and there should be some very reasons for it to not stay that way. We can all come together as a team to try to get businesses thriving and come up with creative, low-cost, low-impact ideas that would revenue for our town. How much money is a water park really generate when people can go float for right down the road, and who will get the money it would generate? Thank you. That's the only letter I have to read in for public input.
Okay. Public hearing, none. Council considerations.
Oh,
Is
before we move on, is there anybody on the phone, because someone's after the phone number, to call in for public input? I just wanted to make sure because I did give a phone number today. Then we can proceed.
Okay, council consideration 7.1. Whitewater Master Plan Analysis Update by City Engineer Dan Scalise of Atkins. Dan, you're on.
Did we skip the consent agenda? Did I blink?
There's nothing on it.
So we just go beyond it?
He just skipped all, but there's nothing on any of the
Okay.
other sections.
Thought we had to approve the minutes or?
I haven't done
Previous
any minutes quite some time.
Okay.
Did have a conversation, just so you know, for these recordings of YouTube do serve as official minutes. I can get paper ones to replace them. We'll get them caught up probably until we get a city manager. But in the meantime, these YouTube videos do count as official records of the meeting.
So we probably should still say, does anyone have any modifications to the minutes? I mean, that's still the minutes. Does anybody want to? I don't know. Just
Yeah, I guess that's true.
things like we're losing that little bit of oversight there. that we should
Well,
have
it's
to,
because, I mean,
correct
when you watch the
minutes.
YouTube, it is actually happened, whereas the minutes are
Yeah.
some why you have to approve.
Sure.
So, anyway, but we should acknowledge that, yeah, the meetings happened. Okay.
What we can
so
reference,
just
Malia,
move
if
on
it
to
makes you
7.
feel better at that portion, perhaps just restating in this stream that the recordings are historically kept on the YouTube channel if anyone wants to go back and review them.
That's a good idea. Okay, I'll start working that into the agenda every week. That's a great idea.
Great idea. Thank you.
Jessica, Mr. Mayor, I have, Richard Hart is right here sitting next to me. I understand that he was going to be on with us, but he couldn't get his Zoom thing to work at his house. That's why I invited him over here to be here. If there's any, would it have been under public statements or public hearings? That,
Yes, the public input. Which we've all closed and moved on. All right, so Dan, we're ready for you now.
Okay, good evening. Jessica, I'm not sure how you line this up. Do you want me just to go over what we proposed?
Yes, please. I guess I could give an introduction. So, and I sent you an analysis, well, his analysis of what our question is, numbers in our wastewater master plan sense in order to help us make a decision on which one of these alternatives we're going to pursue. And so Dan's here to talk about what he's found. I'm trying to figure that out.
So I think council's really expressed, and Jessica's expressed as well, is just the city having a tough time moving to the next stage of selecting an alternative. We've heard multiple times there's not enough information or some low confidence in the information you have. So Jessica and I have talked about this, and kind of the consensus we had was to do a more in-depth analysis. So this is just a proposal to do that. It may seem somewhat high, and I'll go through some of these. So in my opinion, I think the most value is looking at or taking another look at the refurbished alternative to refurbish the existing plant, because that's the most difficult alternative to come up with a cost estimate and to come up with a life cycle cost estimate. New packaged plants, pump stations, pipelines, there's really good data out there on cost for that. Like, people build new plants all the time, but a refurbish of an existing plant is much more difficult to come up with a number. It's going to take a lot of work to come up with that number, especially if we haven't designed it yet. So we have no design. The normal process to go to design, then you come up with a cost estimate as you go, 60% cost estimate, 90% cost estimate, final cost estimate with your design. So to get to a higher level of a cost estimate for a refurbished alternative, it's going to be about $15,000 for us to go through that. So that's kind of the one that I want to emphasize. It's probably the most important out of the series of alternatives you see there. So some of these other ones, it's definitely us taking another look at it, going through what it would cost at the preliminary stage. But like I said, those are generally much easier to come up with numbers for. And so the numbers you have now are likely more accurate than the refurbished alternative. That one, that takes some work. Questions?
Well, all refurbished is time and material, period. You can't bid it on a remodel or a refurbished. It's just too tough, especially if you're talking a water treatment plant. So I understand what you're saying there. Who asked you for that?
For these numbers?
Yeah.
That was something Jessica and I.
Oh, okay.
Right. Because we haven't been able to make a decision because we weren't able to trust the numbers that were in our master plan.
Right.
So this is what it would take to re-look at the numbers. And I don't know if you read the bottom part, but we do have a meeting with Oregon to talk about a grant to fully fund this.
Yes.
But we need real numbers to make a decision, right?
Jessica, you saying,
So I,
go ahead, Mylana.
So there's this list of pipeline alternative for 5,700, the headworks lift station 8,400, and so on and so forth. There's 4 items, and then it says draft report for 13,000. So is it all? Obviously, we need to do the draft report, so 13,000 is the base, and then we would add any of those, one or all of those other alternatives. Is that the idea?
Similar. The 13,000 would be if you were to look at all these alternatives and we were to write a report at the end for all of these. So if we just do one, so I kind of made this a la carte. So if you just pick one and only do a report for that, it will respectively be less. That 13,000 will definitely be less if you just do one.
Okay, so it would never be more than 13,000, the whole thing.
Go to the max, yeah, for the report.
Thank you. Thank you.
And again, like I said, it's kind of a la carte. So we can kind of get to a point. I guess if you don't want a report, you don't have to get one, but it's going to be tough at the end.
Right.
I do want to add a couple things. So one, what Jessica was saying is we're in discussions right now, and we have a meeting tomorrow with some funding agencies to potentially get a $20K grant to help with this process. So that's one thing. The other is an update. I'm not sure if Jessica's giving an update, but we did do the structural analysis on the existing basins, the concrete basins. And that has come out favorable. My business partners who does structural engineering is still drafting up the report, but we did do that. And now he went out there and tested the concrete and it came out favorable. So I did want to mention that. That was a requirement in the DEQ report for the facility plan.
Okay.
So Dan, did you say that the refurbishment would be the cheapest option opposed to a replacement?
I don't know.
Probably.
That's kind of what this is. Purpose of this is to figure that out.
I'm seeing that refurbishing might come cheaper. Often on a real, it's actually more expensive than new construction. So we might be surprised, but for one, we have no information on refurbishment. So vote would be, we certainly need that, especially if it may be the least costly of the alternatives.
So I do, that's a good point. I think in some construction projects, it's a can of worms and you don't know what you're getting into. I definitely agree with that. In this case, it's a full on grip and rip. And so you're basically just retaining the concrete basins. And so it's going to be a little bit easier than a can of worms, in my opinion. You still have to go through it because there's some infrastructure we're dealing with, but I don't think it's a complete unknown. Does that make sense? Okay.
So I have another question. You mentioned the grant, the possible $20,000 grant through Business Oregon. How likely do you think we are to get that? Can you say?
So I talked with Marta with Business Oregon. She expressed there's definitely a possibility. And that's what this meeting is tomorrow. We will know a lot more tomorrow about how possible that is because they all kind of want to get their head around where we're at. I think the big thing that's going to get you over the goal line there is if DEQ can come to the table and say, yeah, they need this. And so I believe John Gasick is on that call tomorrow. So I think that's going to help.
Jessica, I have a question really quick. This might be jumping ahead in the agenda a little bit, but the ARP grant that we're looking at, would something like this qualify where we didn't use it for the water meters? Anything additionally that we didn't use for the water meters, could we then combine it into a different water infrastructure project? So like if we were to get that grant, could we then like combine a bunch of different water projects or wastewater projects into that same grant?
Yes, we can. However, as you know, we are under an MAO with the DEQ, have deadlines to meet. And so making a decision on which alternative to choose needs to have that grant money ever appear. At this point, that grant money can't be taken into consideration for something that happens like late process, but it's not going to help this part right now.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Because my reading, Jessica, ARP, the American Rescue, the last line, to make necessary investments in water, sewer, broadband.
You are
infrastructure.
correct. That is absolutely what it's for, but we are not receiving that money for months and we need to start moving forward on wastewater sooner rather than later. We can't not meet the DEQ's deadline again.
I get that.
Yeah, Dan?
Can you ask if there's pre-award costs allowable?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Can you ask if there's pre-award cost allowable? That way you can, expend the funds now and get reimbursed later when the funds do come through. It's generally allowable for a number of grants.
I mean, it looks to me like a slam dunk for if the city gets 264 and the stated uses are water and sewer and broadband, I mean, what could be a better use of that than make sure we really understand how much our options are cost us? And if you get this
And
pre-award.
I totally get that.
allowable
I will
provision-
ask, I will thought if we can get some of that ahead of time, because that would go.
And we've got to know costs on. That was the problem with the last hearing outfit. We just didn't trust. They didn't even consider, for example, refurbishing the cheap alternative. So I say it's much better to spend $50K and know what we're dealing with than to try to go on the cheap and 27 something and miss information that we should have had and would have allowed us to make a better choice.
I
And it
can
looks
say,
to me like, Ann, is this correct that your entire a la carte would be 50K if we went with your whole thing?
No, he said the total would be 13. The most it would be 13.
that would be just for the report, Malia. The 15K would be to research the refurbishing total. The report will never be more than 13,000, but it would be 15,000 for the research and the assembly of the refurbishment.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, what's the total cost of each? If we wanted to get a nice draft report and real numbers on our alternatives, what's the total? 53?
I think you're correct. It would be all those added up would be all alternatives
So
for all of them.
that's 53,000.
Yep.
So the whole thing is $50,000. And for us to try to save $20,000, it puts us right back in the situation we were with this engineering outfit. We didn't have numbers we could.
I can say that I understand what Mr. Scalise is saying about a new package plant. I don't see researching that. I mean, that is what it is. There's a lot of information out there, and I don't disbelieve the previous engineer firm's numbers on a new plant. I know the biggest alternative that my constituents were asking about was, why can't we just refurbish what we have? And the previous engineering report didn't have a lot of information on that, telling us that it was a good idea or a bad idea. They just kind of left it blank. So I see a lot of value in researching that refurbishing, and I believed their pipeline numbers. Personally, I do agree with Mr. Scalise that perhaps the refurbishing the existing plant might be where our money would be best spent in knowing how much that would cost.
Especially since he already brought the structural out and we know for sure that the concrete to go. So we can definitely read that, because that was the big question before.
Jessica, what action are we supposed to be taking on this item on the agenda tonight?
Well, I'd like you to decide if you'd want to pursue one or all of these of him reworkers, because the bottom line is we have a decision. We need these to help us make an informed decision. So I think you're right on not bother researching the new PAC plant, because those are off the shelf. Basically, know how much that's going to cost. The refurbished one, that's the big question. He also said that and lift stations are pretty shelf too. So I really think we should just only be getting new numbers for the refurbished. I mean, the cost of the pipeline turns had to do more. Did they actually take into all of the getting the land and the usage part, that actual equipment to make the pipeline? You can just go price a pipe. And so, and Dan, did you take consideration at all, all of the bidding and requirements to actually have the right to run a pipeline 7 miles across a bunch of other people's property?
That's
Included in this?
That's a lot of work. But I would agree with your
Yeah.
assessment. Your priorities there, I definitely agree with yours, and I think Ms. Hinckley. The priority you guys laid out, I would agree with that. The refurbished one is definitely the highest one you want to look at. The pipeline's probably the next one. And then package plant, package pump stations. Yeah, those costs are probably more accurate, correct?
So maybe we preliminarily start with, say, go ahead and proceed with reworking the numbers on the refurb. I'll look into this grant money, and if there's money available, then hey, we can add the rest of them in later. But then let's just go ahead and plan for the most critical one. That sound like a good idea?
Dan,
I can't decide, council. You got to decide.
I agree with that
But I
plan laid
recommend
out.
you would do.
Dan, can I ask a question?
Dan,
Dan,
Yeah, but yeah,
Dan, so that in the report, you'd give us spreadsheets showing upfront costs and then main costs over 40 years or whatever the time is, so we can compare apples, and you would be able to give us an apples and apples compare of refurbishing versus pipeline versus new plant.
Yes, it would be life cycle cost analysis, which is correct. The same process that your previous engineer did in the facility plan.
Okay.
I believe the other council member had a question.
Dan, is there any way to look forward to see what modifications the DEQ and everybody else is going to come up with that we're going to need to put into a plant that we own ourselves? You know what I mean? There's going to come up with required temperature. There's going to be ant pee in the water, something that's got to be filtered out, and it's going to be a $10 million job to do it. Now, if we pass it on to Medford with a pipeline, I think we avoid that, don't we?
Okay, so there's kind of two parts there. I'll answer the second one first. So if you pass it along to Medford, they will pass the cost back to you. Okay, I can't tell you what that's going to be. And that's kind of multifaceted based on when you, so Medford is getting ready to get hit. So I believe they had a settlement. They have to do a new facility plan through their settlement. They're going to have to get hit with nutrients and temperature, I think is kind of what that all came down to. Okay, so depending on when you get connected or when you get in contract, you may get hit with STCs, or you're going to get hit on the back end with rate charges. So you will get hit. Okay, how much? I don't know. Now the other question is, will the city be in the same situation in the future? So I'm not quite the best person to answer. That's slightly above me with some of my experts from Anderson Perry. I have heard them say that because Gold Hill is so small, that's probably not likely. But if you want, I can ask them again and disseminate that information back to Jessica to get a better answer if you would like.
That's fine.
But I think that, yeah, that you've been the same thing to me before. It's possible that even though Medford's getting all this trouble, that our plant have to meet the stringent requirement that their plant would have to.
I think we count on 7% probability that we would micronutrient changes in terms of what we'd be responsible for. So Dan, the question is, if Medford does it and spreads it across 10 cities, is that going to be much cheaper than us having it all ourselves?
I guess we won't know until we run the numbers planned.
So I think let me read your question.
that?
You were breaking up a little bit, but I think I understand. So if you're hit with the same requirements, is it cheaper for the city of Gold Hill to do it, or is it cheaper for you to be included in a much larger group of communities? I think you were saying, or my answer would be, my assumption would be, yes, it would probably be cheaper if you were in the regional plant. Okay, because everybody's putting their cost and going together, whereas there's economy of scale there is what my assumption would be. There's an economy of scale.
Yeah.
You're better off with the regional plant.
But including the cost of us building the pipeline in order to connect it to them, are just.
These are all very hypothetical questions, very difficult to answer right now. Okay, but I'm going to caveat that.
Well,
So I think that we need some numbers, and where we fit in a estimation of calculation of those micronutrient requirements might cost us for a small city. Because everyone around it, when DEQ was here a year or two ago, they were saying, we can't tell you it's coming, but it's coming. So it's coming. So, can we ballpark of what a small community, our volume, what it's going to cost to meet those new requirements?
So it's
Because that's a very real big cost input that we've got to consider. It comes to, do we deal with it ourselves? We hand it off to Medford and let them deal with it, and we'll take the cost increases that they give us.
So it's my understanding the decision that we need to make tonight is which one of these that we want to do. And what I'm hearing is refurbish the plant versus pipeline. And so why don't we just combine those two things and say we want the analysis on the refurbishment and the analysis on the pipeline, which would give us both of those numbers to know what is coming down the road and which would be cheaper in the long run.
Yeah, but also to include for nutrient changed requirement. I think that's explicit in this a la carte list.
So here,
So
can I make a
Dan,
suggestion?
we have that guesstimation of market compliance in the when the refurbishment estimate, or can we add that in for another $5,000 or whatever?
Yeah, that was my
I think we
suggestion.
have to have
Was
that number.
let me do some legwork and let me follow up with my partners at Anderson Perry that are the experts on this. Get their take on whether kind of how they see this fitting and whether it's worth looking into. And then I will get back to Jessica and say, hey, they think this is worth looking into, or they don't think it is. If you want us to look into it as an additional item, it would be an addition, so we would add it on. Is that fair enough?
okay.
I can live with that.
But in the meantime, would you guys like to task him with starting the analysis of one of these so that we're moving? And it should be the refurbishment, and should be the pipeline too, but
Yeah.
maybe we wait and see
I
how
would like-
it plays out. I don't know. What do you want to do?
I would like to see that happen, but I'm a little concerned about how much it's going to cost and how we're going to pay for it. Where, if we don't get, and the grant is only 20,000. So do we have funds set aside for this already? in
Well,
the
that's the
budget?
thing. We're talking about the American Rescue, the grant money that's
So,
coming.
But we
I'm
can't,
gonna find
we
out.
can't use that.
Might
Oh, if
be
we can
able
use it
to,
before we get it.
Board
Right,
costs are
okay.
allowable. That's one I'm.
All right. As long as we're not committing to something we don't have funds for, is just all I'm saying.
Well, we do that every day. Yeah. I'm gonna doubt though, because there might be a chance that we can go that money ahead of time.
So as long as Dan knows he's not going to get paid unless we get the American funds. So, there you go, Dan.
Welcome to Gold Hill, Dan.
In the meantime, do you all feel comfortable in tasking him with at least with the refurbishment analysis so that we can start some forward? Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, I mean, the way that I see it is this, is we have an MAO, like, we have to do one of these. And I
Yeah.
think that
That's not exactly, yeah.
so the refurbishing is the most vital of information. So we have to figure out how we're going to pay for it somewhere, whether it's in a budget adjustment or a grant or something. And I think that's the most important.
Do you just need a consensus?
Okay. If you make a motion, then that'll just make it sure. But it sounds like you're all on board. Is there anyone who is opposed to this idea of having them start on the analysis with the plant? No? Okay. Well, then that's where we start, and then we'll keep going from there.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, and Dan's gonna stay because he's in the next section too.
Oh, goody. Okay, anything else under sub one, the master plan for the water plant? Okay, number 2, 7.2 drainage easements.
Yeah, I'll start off by reading this summary. Okay, so David Hammond was recently approved by the commission to build a house at 780 Riverside Avenue. There is a drainage easement on the east side of his. He is asking the city the easement so that he can fully use property and build a shop. And so the engineer is here to any questions you have, but it's his recommendation we release it. Our code book also requires the public works superintendent to inspect the. Tony and I both have the property. There is nothing there. It's inside his fenced yard. It's just to the river. Every property down there is already hooked to main somewhere else. There's no reason to use this easement, but let Dan tell you his opinion.
You're breaking up there. Did you ask me a question?
Sorry. Yeah, so Dan's here to answer any questions you have. I do have, this is going to require you to have to approve it and approve a resolution. And it states that Mr. Hill will pay all the fees himself and he'll take it recorded. He's already agreed, so if you approve this tonight. But yeah, Dan's here to answer any questions.
How big a piece of land is that? Just a tiny sliver?
Yeah, 15 foot.
15 foot wide.
That's right. 15 feet wide.
128 long, looks like, 120 plus
Yeah.
a,
Okay, I had to blow it way up, and still, yeah. I have no questions.
No questions here.
so is there a motion that we move with the request to move the drainage easement?
I move that the city council approve the request from Dave Hammond to release the existing public easement related to future storm drainage across 784 North Riverside Avenue and to approve resolution number 21R4.
I second.
It's been moved in second. Any other issues? Roll call, please.
Before I actually call the roll, I'm going to read the resolution on the record, so you hear it before it's approved. You've all read it, but just for the record. Whereas the current property is applied to construct a structure on the site, and whereas the current property has requested the current storm drain be released to allow efficient use of his property. And whereas the city engineer has reviewed the request and finds that it appear that the easement is needed current or future storm drain infrastructure. And whereas the city wishes to allow the property owner to utilize his property without unnecessary restrictions based on an easement that is no longer necessary. Now therefore be it resolved, the City Council of the City of Gold Hill to release the easement recorded in number 979. To sign and record the release of easement, however, all associated costs of the agreement shall be reimbursed by Ms. Hammond, the property owner requesting the easement.
Okay, moved and seconded, roll call.
Counselor Wilson,
Yes.
Rigney,
Yes.
Counselor Bishad,
Yes.
Hinckley,
Yes.
Counselor Palmer,
Yes.
Counselor G.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, Dan. Does anybody have any other questions for Dan Goes? I think a lot of you, this may be your time meeting him. This is Dan.
Thank you for coming and doing this with us. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you during the interview, but you know what I mean. Sort of his real appearance.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, step 3, city manager recruitment.
Okay, this one's pretty cool. So we had an executive session week to discuss our search for city manager, as I will be stepping down from the position. And Dee Brown has offered you the recruiting for us, and we will pay her expenses. I think it's an acceptable way to do it. I'm really excited about the prospect of a professional do the search for us through all the steps necessary. So all I need to do is for you guys to motion that we should that, and then we'll sit. Like she said, typical search time runs 12 weeks. She may finish it sooner, but that's going to line up perfectly with the next fiscal year. So now's good to do it.
Is there a motion to authorize the city manager into a contract?
I will make a motion to authorize city manager to enter a contract with WBCP Incorporated for the purpose of recruiting a new city manager. There is no resolution number.
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded, roll call, please.
Councilor Bishad,
Yes.
Gino,
Yes.
Councilor Hink,
Yes.
Councilor Palmer,
Yes.
Councilor
Yes.
Wilson.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you so much. You may want to talk, she talked about a subcommittee of possibly 2 of you being the ones to deal with her. Does you want to volunteer? Do you want to discuss how you want to handle it? Or should we just get back to it?
Sounds like she
Yeah,
has a specific road. Let's give her the green light and say, run with it.
Okay.
Like I said, my
Okay.
only concern is that we continue to work with the insurance company and veterans preference and make sure that we're doing what is required legally of us. And so that's really my only request as far as that is making sure that we are doing things according to what preference needs to be given.
And she and I have talked about that, and she's willing whatever
Yeah.
it is we instruct her. So,
Great. Step, the budget committee update.
okay, so we did not receive any options for new budget committee members. However, we still have our existing budget committee members, and they are all to continue on. So, I mean, that gives us a 10-member budget committee. So, the first committee meeting will be next Monday, same place, same time here. all of you, plus those other 3 people. I will present the budget and the budget message at that meeting.
I did have a question
That's
about
all.
budget committee membership. So because we don't have the full budget committee and everything in the world has gone completely insane, perhaps budget committee has slipped a lot of people's minds. Are we still accepting applications through budget season, or are we closing it and just saying we're going
Yes,
forward?
if you, I know that Carol Holmes has been out there actively recruiting every you could think of to try to get anybody in an application, and just aren't interested. So, but I mean, at any point, if you want to join later, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. The more the merrier.
Yeah, don't turn away a volunteer.
Yeah.
Okay, 7.5, update to City Muni Code Title 8, Health.
So yeah, as you all know, the reason you wanted to start a court in the first place, so that we could start cleaning up this town. And it turns out that in our book, you can't actually write tickets for those things. So update to the ordinance so that we will have ability to write tickets for health and safety actions on people's property before moving on to the abatement process, which I have been told take years and lots of litigation. It ends up costing way more than it's worth. I'm gonna write some tickets and get people to clean the property.
Yeah.
This will do so. I know that I've written this down as the first one tonight, but I want to make changes to it. If you have any problems with the language, now's
So-
the time we can talk.
I have some issues with the ordinance. I feel that $250 per day per infraction, especially with some of the nuisance violations that we have in Title 8, is punitive, especially towards the poor within the community. I know I talked to Jessica earlier today about potentially going through our code and classifying certain infringements as, say, a Class A, a Class B, a Class C, and then doing a fee schedule based on what type of infraction it is, rather than just a blanket $250 per day. For some of the infractions that are in there, that can be a little steep.
And what you're referring to, the Class A through F, I think it goes to. So in our book, section 120 is where our generalities are, and a lot of the other code sections refer to this and call it by type. Like a Class A is a $25 fine, a Class B $50 fine. The reason I went with 250, and like I said, I just basically got Central Point after talking to them. They just do a flat 200 and deal on everything, but maybe $250, depending on what particular infraction. Maybe it is too much. Maybe we should leave it to the, but the reason I wrote in the violation resolved to the satisfaction of the full judge. I mean, we could just write the ticket, the judge determine the fine. That's
Jess, can we make it up to 250 and let the judge make the decision?
That's what it is. It's a fine of more than $250. That's what it actually says. A fine of more than $250. So we could write it for less. We could to the judge to decide, or we could go back through the code book and assign a class to each of those sections.
I mean, for me, the thing is the municipal court meets once a month. That's 29 days. And if it's per day and you're waiting to talk to the judge, that's over $7,000 in the month because you're waiting to talk to the judge if we're assessing it on a $250 flat fee. And for some people, $7,000 is a lot of money.
It's not going to be
again,
charged
for
the
the judgment.
$250 per day until the judge makes a ruling. They have to stand in front of the judge, and then the judge will say, you owe this amount. And then
Okay.
after that, then it's up to the judge to say when.
Okay, but what you're looking at is you're waiting your chance to argue your case in front of the judge. And if you fail that, you're risking $7,000 for the month just to be able to argue in front of a judge. like that to me seems punitive for something like not mowing your grass. I mean, especially during fire season, when there are times you can't do that. There are various different reasons why some of these things can't be done, and just to wait to argue them in front of a judge, you could potentially be fined $7,000 without being able to know, okay, this, just every violation in town is $250.
I think that's mitigated by the, it says not more than. You've got room there.
Except
That's
that
more than.
who determines anywhere between $2 and $200? I would like to know that this is how much this violation costs, and this is how much I'm accumulating on a daily basis.
And it just keeps accumulating as long as you leave the violation in place.
Iterations to it next.
There might actually be another section in the book where they talk about if you want to appeal a ticket, then all the fines hold until you appear before the judge. I have the section, but I have read it in there. So like, if you get, might be the abatement section, the wording in there, but basically you get the message that, hey, you're getting fined this. You tell the city to appeal it, then everything's on hold until the appeal is heard. In this case, that municipal judge. Something like that.
Don't these
Jessica,
people get multiple warnings before they get a fine?
Thank
Yes.
you.
And that's, like I told you, I talked to the sheriff's department. This whole ticket writing thing is not going to happen until an educational campaign where we say, hey, we passed the ordinance. We're about to start in things. Start cleaning up your act. Not going to, like, you know, pick out particular houses. Like, this is going to be a blank. I think we should start by sending a letter to all of our residents saying, hey, we're about to start doing this, so be aware. And then start going to the individual homes. It all starts with education before they finally get it. So there's that.
I would just be more comfortable with a step up in fees. First infraction, $50, second infraction, $100, and let people see what it's accumulating rather than just going to a straight $250 at the very first time, and then we're going to collect it per day. That's a lot of money. We don't have, you know, everyone in town doesn't make six figures. There are a lot of people in this town who are struggling, especially during the pandemic right now. And they're struggling with just meeting basic costs. And all of a sudden now, because they can't mow their lawn right away, they're going to get strapped with fines that are punitive in nature.
I keep hearing you say that it's a straight $250 a day.
I agree that it's likely to piss people off. And was I talking?
I was talking.
I called Jessica earlier today and I asked her who determines what the fee is. And she said that it's basically just a flat $250, because I wanted to know, is it the judge? Is it the city manager? Is it the person who's ticketing? Who determines what this fine is versus this fine? And she said it's basically a flat $250.
Well, the ordinance doesn't say a flat fee. It says up to $250. And that's, I would assume, and maybe it needs to be stated in the ordinance, that that's decided by the judge, not, it's not, doesn't say a straight $250. It says up to $250. So it's not saying straight $250. And these people are going to get many warnings. Like, I believe the first one's after 10 days, and then they get another 30-day warning before any fees even start to be accumulated. So it's not like it's just going to be, you know, okay, you got a ticket, so starting today, you're going to be fined up to $250 a day. I don't think this is very clear.
Yeah, I think
Thanks, Janet.
you get the ticket and no fee on it, and you either fit or you appear before the judge. And if you fixed it, by the time you appear before the judge, and the judge assigns the fee.
No
I
matter,
mean,
excuse me, guys, no matter what we say or put in our ordinance, the judge can say or do whatever he or she wants in their courtroom as far as a fine, or they can go up to the maximum that we put, down to the minimum that we put. So
It's
move
true.
on.
And what we wrote the ticket for, the judge could bring out and charge her own fine. She does have that right.
I personally, if I run a red light, I can go, if I run a red light in Medford, I can go to the website and I can see how much my ticket should be for running a red light. That's just what I'm saying. If I don't mow my lawn, I should know that it costs me this much money because I choose not to mow my lawn for every day and every infraction. I think there should be a fee schedule on that and not just a up to or a flat. I think I should know what it is that I'm incurring.
I do see your point. So I'm thinking we can go ahead and read this ordinance because we still have to have a reading by May 3rd. And on 3rd, I can present to you a fee schedule that would go along with this.
Excellent.
Because there's really not that many things in this section. I mean, it wouldn't take that long to assign them all. But it wouldn't stop us getting the ordinance in and still being able to sit on May 3rd. I'll just provide a fee to you at that time.
That sounds
Does
good.
that sound
That
good?
idea. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion. Reading of
Well,
ordinance.
before your motion, I'm going to read the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
Since you all have a copy of it and it was posted on the web, correct?
Yeah, it was posted.
Yeah.
It was posted with the agenda.
Okay, so if you're all okay with it, unless you request that I read the entire, I'm just going to read the title and that will suffice. Read the title. Okay with that? Does anyone want me to read the full thing? Okay. It's of the City of Gold Hill, Oregon, passing Chapter 8 of the Gold Hill Municipal Code to establish fees.
Okay, now I'd like a motion to adopt first reading of ordinance 21-01, ordinance reading Chapter 8 of the Gold Hill Municipal Code to establish fees and fines with a detailed fee schedule to be supplied at a later date.
Second.
Moved in second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Wilson,
Yes.
Counselor Rigney,
Yes.
Counselor Moore. Did you say yes? Looks frozen.
Who are you asking?
Palmer's crashed.
I don't think we heard who you said the last one to.
Counselor Palmer. He looks
I think he's
frozen.
frozen.
He looks frozen. Yeah.
It's a nice,
When you have technical issues.
Well, now he's gone. He's gonna
Okay.
come back.
Counselor Hinckley,
No.
Counselor G,
Yes.
Counselor Bishad,
Yes.
okay, well, the motion passes. Ask Counselor Palmer what his vote was. He reappears.
Okay, thank you. Great job on this. Good. Thanks for moving that along. Seventh American Rescue Grant.
So this is the one you've probably heard about, got signed into effect, and every city and every received money. In fact, Jackson County received $43 million. So if you know anybody in the county that needs grant, they have plenty of money. The City of Gold Hill can exceed $260,169. We're going to get the first half of that probably sometime around June, and then we'll get the other half of that after we spend it all. I've given you the information that we know now, and what we know now is that it's really broad what we can spend this money on. But necessary investments, water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure are on there. They're also keen on spending money for social distancing projects, which mean our parks. They want to throw money at parks. This, like I said, this is really a question for the budget committee, but we can expect to receive $132,000. So that is the budget for next year. I just wanted to tell you right off the bat, I want to propose it to get all of these water meters in town based. We have all the parts sitter. I finally gave a contractor today who was able to get a preliminary estimate on how much it would cost. Typical meter replacement cost $65 per. Our 3/4 residential probably fall more to $50 range, but it could be 65. But the three of them in town are the 3 residentials. There's going to be an additional $20 for each meter because the meters that we purchased from Jacksonville are touch read meters. It means that the lids of each box have to be modified so that the wire can come up so you can touch it with the wand. So an additional $10 to $20. It's $2 if it's a concrete lid, and it's $10 if it's plastic. The majority of our lids in plastic. Does make it a little bit trickier swapping out a meter. Talked to the guy today. He said he just started a job in a town north of Eugene, 380 meters place. He started the job today. He expects to be done by Thursday. He'll be able to sweep in and sweep. Everyone in town will have a new. Now, I did not have enough from Jacksonville to cover the entire town, but almost all of it. So we run all the numbers and find out exactly what we need because, of course, some meters have been replaced over the last few years. We have bought new meters here and there and put them in the ground. But basically, the whole project can be done. It looks like it's going to be under 50 grand, somewhere from 30 to 50 grand, and all the little variables. So I'd like to speak up for at least that much money to get the water meter done. We are losing so much in revenue because we have so many broken meters out there. Plus the labor time to read all of the meters is cut. You just up with the wand. You don't have to get on your knees or anything. So that's my vote to spend the money.
I know that I talked to you. I talked to you earlier about and I will fully admit my property is one of them. And there are, I believe, 4 other properties in town that do not currently pay sewer because of the way that our sewer pipelines are structured. I'm wondering if there's any money left over at the end, whether or not we can pay the engineering firm to figure out how we might get onto the sewer network in a way that we would have to pay and would solve those structural issues that are running under our properties.
And that's a perfect example too. Yeah, because that example of lost revenue, people who pay their sewer bills because our sewer main is in such bad shape, it's their house. Just some things to think about. I've given you a summary. Feel free to find own projects and come up with numbers. Budget committee's meeting next. Parks, an excavator do us some good in so many different projects. I can't tell you how many things we have to contract out because we don't have equipment to do it. So it's just something else to think about. But I just wanted it on the agenda so you know it's out there, is coming. It's not like a regular grant where we have to let an application first and then they just the money to us. They're just going to give this money and then I'm going to have to file reports with the government telling them what I did. So, yay.
The particulars of we can spend this would best discussed at next budget committee.
Yes, absolutely. And if you have anything you want to get on the budget, let me know. I'm going to be finalizing it. I mean, obviously, you can wait a week and we can just rehash. We can have meetings as we want because we're actually ahead of the curve this year. So, yeah, just bring it to the table. Figure out how to fit it in.
Next week. Okay, good. Hey, great news. Okay, 7.7, proposed resolution 21R2 supporting the development of the water park.
So, yeah, 7.7 and 7.8, the two solutions, they are affirming the decision that prior councils already made. Well, I won't get to, but I'll read the resolution out loud and then you guys can discuss it. Whereas the city of Gold Hill adopted an open space master plan 18th, 2015, and whereas within said master plan, it was agreed that the city of Gold Hill would support the development of Whitewater Park. While not being financially, a joint venture intergovernmental agreement to develop the resource would be considered. Now therefore be it resolved, the city of Gold Hill will continue to support development of the Gold Hill Whitewater Park at Tillameek Falls, which is a part of the Gold Hill Sports Park, working with the Rogue Valley Council of Government and the Gold Hill Whitewater Center to apply for permits and grants on behalf of the city. The purposes and grants will be to modify the river channel known as Mugger's Alley to make it safer and more accessible to a wider group of whitewater enthusiasts, as well as to provide park amenities, including improved trails, restrooms, hand parking, and picnic tables.
So I still have a number of constituents who oppose this, who have looked at it, who have said that this was the equivalent of the city taking lead on this project, which it is specifically spelled out in our Parks Master Plan that we will not take lead on this project. That instead what we would do is we would lease out the land to RV Cog or the Whitewater Center, and then they would apply for permits in their name, not the city of Gold Hill's name. But also I have a number of constituents that have requested that this go to a referendum on the ballot in November, and that they would like to vote on whether or not the city of Gold Hill will continue to support the Whitewater Park in this way. I personally, there's been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of dispute as to whether or not this is supported by the citizens of Gold Hill. And I see absolutely no issue with not letting it go to them. I think we should let it go to them once and for all and let the citizens vote on whether or not they support this.
Councilor Hinckley, Jessica, I believe what you're asking for is the repeal of the resolution that adopted the Parks and City Master Plan back in 2015. Am I correct?
You believe, who's asking for that? This resolution?
Can anybody hear me?
Hold your space bar down, Bill. Space bar down while you talk.
I did. Now, the question I asked was, what we're asking for is a referendum for the people to repeal the resolution that was adopted by the city in 2015. Am I correct?
What I'm asking for is a referendum on whether or not the citizens want the Gold Hill to support the Whitewater Park.
It's already been done by that resolution that was passed in 2015.
What this resolution is asking us to do is to take lead, which our Parks Master Plan specifically prohibits us from doing. And so this goes beyond what the Parks Master Plan says. And actually, this resolution is asking us to modify a master plan that we don't have the authorization to do without going to the people.
We're just following the master plan. There is no referendum required on this. I don't see where you're going with this, Councilor Hinckley.
By applying for permits in the name of Gold Hill, we are taking lead on a project, and our Parks Master Plan specifically in multiple locations says that we will not take lead on this project. Instead, if we want to continue to support this project, what we would do is we would name a lead agency, such as RV Cog, and then we would lease the Whitewater Park to RV Cog, and RV Cog would file for those permits in their own name for the project. They would not file for those permits or grants in the name of Gold Hill. By doing that ourselves, we are becoming lead agency, which our Parks Master Plan forbids us from doing in multiple locations. So if we want to do that, it should go to the people.
The problem is the 5 words at the end of this is on behalf of this, because that's what makes it take the lead. Because you're right, the Parks Master Plan say we can't take the lead. But if we collapse the words on behalf of the city, then it would just be us working with them.
Right, and then
Not
we would
in
write a
our-
resolution making either the Whitewater Center or RVCOG lead agency and write up a lease agreement like we have with Little League, so that Little League can make the necessary requirements and they can do what they want on our land. So we would then write up a lease agreement with either RVCOG or the Whitewater Center, leasing them our land, and then they would move forward in any grants or permits in their name and make them lead agency, not us. And that is one of the big issues that a lot of citizens have, is that they do not want the city to be lead agency.
Jessica, for clarification, if we were to move ahead with considering beginning the permitting process, isn't there allowance for extensive public input in the process?
Yeah, but she has a point. The master plan that we annually refer to specifically said won't take the lead. And this does make it sound like we're taking the lead. But I think if we just take out those 5 words on behalf of the city, then it's just saying that we will work with them and one of them will become the lead. It won't be us.
I mean, the fact that RCOG is spending their money and doing the permit writing, they're the lead agency. We're not. We're just giving them the A. That's a real stretch to say that the city is the lead when we're basically in the back row and let someone else do all the work.
One of the major problems with this entire thing going forward is our Parks Master Plan spells out that we need to name a lead agency on this project and never have. A resolution needs to be put forward naming who is the lead agency on this project. We've never done that very first and basic step in 20 years. It's very, very simple step to say, who is lead?
It takes money to do the permitting. That's why it's been done. We've been waiting for, now we have agreement from RVCOG that will take the lead, that will
then the first step would be to write a resolution
Right.
making them the official lead.
Let's go ahead and move
That's
on, making them the official lead, please.
Okay, can we incorporate that into resolution?
I
Yeah,
have a
it sounds
question.
like the resolution needs an overhaul
What-
because, I mean, has RVCOG agreed to take the lead?
Well, that's my question, is what is involved in getting someone to take the lead?
It's been the entire thrust of the last 4 meetings is that RV is taking the lead. They will do the grant writing. They will get the money together. They will walk us through the process step by step.
Do we have that in writing?
We keep getting the wheel was approved in 2015. That's 6 years ago.
Yes,
Conversations
the
before-
document that it was approved in 2015 says that the city will not take the lead and that we will declare a legal lead. That's what that document says, and we never did it, and it needs to be done in order to make what you
It
want to
says
go
we will
forward legal.
It says we will declare a lead.
It
Or
says
you
the
make
city will not take the lead, and then there is a section determining and explaining exactly how we would declare a lead. It says in several different places that the city will not take the lead, which was the will of the people. And by this approving this document, we are in violation of our own Parks Master Plan. And you cannot go against the Parks Master Plan without sending it to the people.
Okay, Jessica, can you redo this resolution and find out through RVCOG or whoever is going to take the lead on
Yeah.
it? so we can do what she's asking and then we can put it to bed?
Yeah, you're right. We need to do this the right way. We don't break our own master plans. I will circle back with RVCOG and get a draft IGA from them stating that they will take the lead, and I will write a resolution in that IGA.
Thank you.
Okay, that pretty well covers 7.7.8 related is the proposed resolution of Water Park as a potential host for the 2028 Olympic Games Whitewater event.
I propose we table that until we get this straightened out on the first issue we just talked about.
Okay.
I agree.
I second or third.
Reports from counselors. Anyone want to update us on what you're up to?
I went to the Rogue Valley Area Council Transportation meeting. Jessica, I think, called for volunteers for people to do that. I went to the meeting in March. It meets 6 times a year. Basically, it's just an avenue for the Department of Transportation to talk to cities and counties and, you know, other government agencies about what they're doing and to get input from cities and counties on what we think the Department of Transportation should be doing. Just kind of an information exchange. Just a couple quick takeaways. They talked about some projects they're going to be working on in our neighborhood to make things safer, and they've already started working on one of them. That's the off-ramp at exit 40 southbound. They've moved the guardrail back to make visibility better. When you get to the end of that off-ramp there, it's really hard to see to the left where people are coming over the overpass. And so they were just talking about it at the meeting, and then I've been watching, and that project I think is almost done. So that's nice, making things safer for us in our neighborhood. The other project that's in our neighborhood is out at the intersection of 234 and Table Rock. That's a high crash intersection, and they're making bigger putting in bigger stop signs and stop signs with flashing lights on them and things like that to try to improve safety of that intersection. So that's, they also said basically they anticipate more funding becoming available for infrastructure. And so if we have, they're going to be looking for ready to go projects. So if there's anything, you know, infrastructure wise, transportation related that we can think of, you know, we need here for Gold Hill, we should be thinking about that and be letting them know.
We should figure out how to get the buses to come into town.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
we've got a narrow bridge budget item, but it is and related then is also safe pedestrian walkways for people to get from our bridge over freeway and to the bus stop.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking
I'll
on this.
mention that.
This is super important. With 99 going through town, we need to be definitely speed on what ODOT's doing, Malia.
Right. So they had not had representation from Gold Hill for quite a while, I guess, or for some time. And so they did appoint me as a member representing Gold Hill and Councilor Gina as the alternate. And just as an aside, Councilor Gina, I can't go to the May meeting, and I hope you can. So May 11th, we can talk about that separately, but there it is.
Stuff. Thank you.
I can say that I have been working on the Citizen Involvement Committee, April 15th at 6 p.m. We'll be having it via Zoom. The input that I had for the agenda is that citizens would like to discuss whether or not the future of this town is as a tourist town or as a family-centered town. And so that will be the topic that we'll be discussing on April 15th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. The notice is on the website, and I'm working with Jessica to get the agenda together.
Another important thing, who are we? We market ourselves until we have an idea of what it is we're marketing. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to congratulate the people that did the park, the B&B, Tim and David, excuse me, did the clearing at the water treatment plant down the bike path, did a great job. I actually, I contracted those guys myself to clear the area down on by the riverfront behind my property, did a great job.
I
Also,
saw those pictures. That's beautiful what they did over there.
oh yeah, thank you. And it's going to be cleared off. I guess we're going to move ahead with some other projects down there too.
Yeah, you're totally stealing my thunder, Bill.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, let me get on to something else
Yeah.
that may have,
After I went to the hillside today and looked at Bill's lot and saw how amazing it looked. And so I authorized them to go ahead and do the whole rest of the beach part, all the blackberries out, because they're offering it to us at a very low cost. We have the money in the budget. So yeah, they're doing it all. It's going to look.
Fantastic.
it will be beautiful. And what, let me move on to one more thing I did. I did an LOC Zoom meeting with, excuse me, about 100 people, and also was Representative DeFazio from our district here, from us representing us in DC. And he's co-authored a large bill, HR 1915, that's going to have a lot, I mean, billions and billions of money for wastewater and water treatment. We don't know if it's going to pass. They've got the people. They should be able to push it through on a bipartisan if they've got Republican support, of course, which they may or may not need. But it has billions of dollars in it, and a lot of it's grants. I think we just one more thing we probably have to keep an eye on. I'll monitor 1915 myself and keep us up to date on what we got to do to try to stay ahead of it, as well as with the our LOC people.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, department reports. Jessica.
I was going to tell you all about the blackberry. If you've been out there and seen it, they've been doing a fabulous job. And I believe Palmer has already mentioned, we're going to them about what it would cost to have them come back once a year to have the maintenance, so we can work that into because it's a lot. I mean, the grant that we got from Oak covered 10 acres. That's a lot of blackberries. So we're going to need help maintenance, because it's one thing to take them all out. How blackberries are, they want to come back. So we're going to have to stay on top of it. It's amazing. If you haven't been bike trail headed up past the intake, past the treatment plant towards the intake, it's like a whole new park opened up. There are trees that I didn't even existed because there were so many blackberries there. So that's one thing I wanted to tell you about. As a reminder to all of you, that time of year where you have to do your event of economic interest report to the Government Ethics Commission. I ran the report to see which of you had filed, and only a couple of you have filed. The deadline is April 15th. I have a link to help you through that if you want to do it, but everyone on this call needs to have it done by 15th.
Right. So I've been waiting
one
for my link.
through that. What's that?
All previous years, we've received a link that is specific to each counselor. I've been waiting
Yes,
for
you
my
should have
link.
already received these links. That's why some of you have already done it. If you didn't receive your link, I'll double your information and I'll resend it to you.
Okay, thank
You
you. That,
definitely-
and my email's been messed up, so yeah.
Can you resend me mine too?
Right. Send your link to you.
Me too,
In
please.
fact, should I just go ahead and to all of you who haven't done it yet? Okay. The last thing I want to talk about,
Jess,
sorry, what was that?
just seeing that on 410, the OGEC is the agency, and they did out to us, but I'd lost it. So go ahead and search on 410 and you should find that request.
Okay, the thing I want to talk about is that you may have heard, I don't know what they saw us on Facebook because I'm not on it. But we've been doing a big push to elect all of our people who were way behind on paying their utility bills. We've let it for the last year, but we behind, and there are some people who just haven't paying us at all. They weren't even paying us before COVID happened. So doing a big push to get those people. So last month when I ran the delinquent bills, I put a note that said, if you're more than past due, you need to contact City Hall and either set up a payment plan or pay it in full. And that grand total was $34,799 in back utility bills that we were owed. So we ran it, and there were 49 residents that 35 came from 49 residents. And I'm happy to report, since we've been put this, and Mandy has been killing with kindness, helping them figure out what they need to do to get caught up. 27 of those people paid in full. 9 of them signed a payment plan and made their initial payment. One person said, "Did it shut it off?" So one got shut off. We are going to recover when the home sells. It's in a trust account right now, and it's being up for sale, and we'll receive that as part of the closing cost. And then one renter moved out, left the owner holding the bags, so we're working on the owner on that. But that accounts for all 9 people. As of today, we have recovered 16% of that dollars. That's 40% of the money that we've owed. So I want to give a big hand out to everybody that's on my staff, because we made a big push and everybody was, so, hey.
Good job.
That's everything that I want to report, I think. Do you have any questions for me about anything? Wow, good job. Way to breeze through this long agenda, but now you get to take the third day of the month off. Except for people who are going on vacation all month. They don't have to come to anything.
Okay, any other counselor want to add anything? We wrap up.
I wanted to add, it is spring. We are, yesterday was Easter. We have a lot of stuff going on for Bee City. We all need to remember that flowers are how a lot of our pollinators, especially early flowers like dandelions, I know that they don't look the best, but sometimes if we can leave little patches of dandelions out, that's some of the early food for the pollinators that we have in our area, and they need that in order to thrive through the early season before some of the prettier flowers come out. So if you could leave some of those, just for a little while, it could really help our pollinators out.
Bees need love too. Thank you, Danielle. Okay, this meeting's adjourned.